Is the multiverse a bad concept? Is it just a hollow gimmick? Something that allows writers to bring back older fan favorite characters for cheap nostalgia? You know, more often than not when the topic of the multiverse comes up on a Reddit thread or on Twitter in relation to the MCU, the general consensus I get is that Marvel Studios really dropped the ball with the whole multiverse concept. So I wanted to investigate this claim, really dig into it, and determine once and for all, conclusively, did Kevin Feige and all the boys over there at Marvel Studios drop the ball when it came to the multiverse in Phase 4? And the answer is yes. Yes, they did. Okay, the answer is a little bit more complicated than yes or no, they did or they didn't. I'm going to be generous and say that Marvel Studios got the concept of the multiverse and what you could do with it from a narrative perspective half right. You see, the concept of the multiverse is actually pretty cool. You can do a lot with it. It's versatile. Personally, I've always loved it, but then my exposure to the multiverse was through writers that really knew how to properly use the concept. When I think of the multiverse, I think of the original Spider-Verse arc in Spider-Man the Animated Series, the Savage Time and a Better World arcs from Justice League. Good stories. These were stories that took characters and worlds you were familiar with and changed them in interesting ways. Superman kills Lex Luthor and boom, suddenly you've got a fascist dictatorship. That's interesting, man. I want to know more about that world and how the Justice League got to this point. But has Marvel Studios delivered a movie or a show that capitalizes on the concept of the multiverse in the same way as those stories? I'd argue that they haven't. So let's take a quick inventory of what Marvel Studios has done with the multiverse concept so far. Let's see how ambitious they got with using a concept that has practically unlimited potential for showing the audience cool shit. Spider-Man No Way Home. This is the big one, right? The one that everyone brings up as the best example of how to use the multiverse concept. And I kind of agree. I like a lot about No Way Home. I don't think it's perfect, but there's a lot of good in there. I genuinely like the mini arc that the writers gave Garfield's Peter Parker. Him saving MJ closes the circle on the events of The Amazing Spider-Man 2 in a sweet way that's actually emotionally affecting. It's a small story arc, but it's meaningful. And if you're bringing back characters like this, it should be to push them forward a little, have them progress. So I'll give the writers points for how they handled Garfield's Peter Parker. Maguire's Peter Parker though, he doesn't really get any progress or really much to do at all. Being fair, he does fill an older, more experienced big brother role in No Way Home, which I think is a natural fit for him, so that is progress of a sort, but where Garfield's Spider-Man fills in the gaps a little since we last saw him, Maguire's Peter only gives you vague, largely non-committal updates. Is he with Mary Jane? Yeah, sounds like it. They found a way to work it out. But do they have kids? What has he been up to since we last saw him? What villains has he encountered in the last 15 years? What happened with Aunt May? If you wanted answers to these questions, you're shit out of luck. And this ambiguity feels like a deliberate choice on behalf of the writers. I get the feeling they want to leave everything about this Peter's life since we last saw him as vague as possible, just in case they're planning another movie with this guy down the road. Having said all that though, No Way Home does make good use of these characters. There are genuinely touching moments between all three of these guys when they share the screen, the rooftop scene being the best moment in the entire film. For Marvel's first big attempt at using the multiverse in a meaningful way, they didn't do half bad. Could have been better, but it's not bad. Multiverse of Madness straddles a line for me. It should be a much better film than it is considering the director, but it actually comes the closest to giving us a true multiversal movie, warts and all. And I know people like to clown on this movie, but we got to see what evil Doctor Strange looks like, and it's interesting. Also, we got to see how some major events we remember could have played out differently, like with Thanos and the Illuminati on Titan. Again, that's interesting. Another bonus, characters we knew from the main MCU timeline like Peggy Carter, Monica Rambeau were totally reinvented, giving us really different alternate takes on them. And Raimi and crew are making the most of the multiverse concept here, to be fair to them. The Illuminati were mainly just used as cannon fodder, but I still appreciate the effort of incorporating these characters at all. Is Mom perfect? No, it's not, but it is the most ambitious multiverse project in terms of world building. Deadpool and Wolverine is actually pretty ambitious with the multiverse concept. We're getting a nice new take on Wolverine here that feels really different from the mainline Fox X-Men films. We're getting reintroduced to a lot of old characters we haven't seen in a while, and along with that, we're seeing a new take on a character that was handled really badly in X-Men Origins Wolverine. Points for using the multiverse to correct a mistake and giving us an actual good live-action version of Gambit. However, I said that Deadpool and Wolverine is ambitious with how it uses the multiverse. I'm not saying it sticks the landing and does something truly worthwhile with it though. Outside of this new take on Wolverine, these cameo appearances fall more into the category of key jangling than meaningful, like with Maguire's Spider-Man in No Way Home. Blade, Elektra, Gambit, and the Human Torch are just not given anything to do outside of their action scenes, and there was an opportunity to do something interesting here, something substantive with this team. The writers could have touched on what these characters have gotten up to since we last saw them, maybe have them share what it's like to lose the people they were close with when their worlds were destroyed. These were characters the audience actually knew, Daredevil and the Fantastic Four. I would have loved seeing how this team interacts with each other, the bonds that they have together, considering they all share what it's like to be the sole survivors of their respective worlds. Wesley Snipes' Blade is iconic. We followed this guy across his own trilogy. He's brought back in Deadpool and Wolverine after 20 years, and no one can think to do anything more meaningful with this guy than put him in an action sequence. And all this really potentially interesting stuff, the stuff that would have really set Deadpool and Wolverine apart, was just stepped over. I've got a whole video on how these characters were mishandled. I got particularly thick about this one, maybe check it out. Deadpool and Wolverine would be at the top of this list if it was as substantive as it was ambitious. It's almost like Levy and Co. really didn't see the golden opportunity they had in their hands with this film, the potential of what they could have actually done. Fantastic Four First Steps. I saved the best for last. Fantastic Four had probably the best setup for a multiverse project. A new world, totally disconnected from the mainline MCU. A new time period. And it was, to me, the biggest miss of the multiverse saga. Let me ask you some questions about the world of Fantastic Four First Steps. Who's the president of America on this earth? Did the Korean War happen? How about Vietnam? How about any of the world wars? Can you tell me even one distinct thing about this Earth or its alternate history? No, you can't, because Matt Shakman and the 4 other screenwriters on this project were totally uninterested in exploring any questions like these, even passively. What world building there is so surface level, and I'm not looking for a 20-minute exposition dump from Reed running through the entire alternate history of this Earth. Sometimes the best world building can be done passively. 2 characters talking, a newspaper sitting on a table with a headline, an overheard snippet from a news broadcast. There should be more to this world than just the retrofuturism aesthetic. Watchmen did more to set up the alternate history of its Earth in the opening 3-minute montage than First Steps did in its 2-hour-plus runtime. And there is no excuse for that, man. A 60-set Fantastic Four film is a dream project. This is what the fans wanted from the very start. This could have been amazing. It should have been. This world should have been one of the most interesting worlds in the MCU. But no, all of the potential of this project was just pissed away, only for the writers and director to really do nothing with it. So checking the old scorecard, that's 4 films out of 15 in this saga that had a hard focus on the multiverse. I'd argue that only really 3 of those films, No Way Home, Multiverse of Madness, and Deadpool and Wolverine, hit the mark and actually used the multiverse concept to tell a different kind of story. Even then, the results vary. Deadpool and Wolverine had the potential to do something really interesting and develop a team of multiversal characters, but you know, Sean Levy, and Fantastic Four First Steps was a film strangely committed to the goal of doing as little with the concept of the multiverse as possible. So yeah, not exactly a glowing track record for the old multiverse concept so far. On the Disney Plus side, there have been 18 shows produced during the multiverse saga. Of these 18 though, only 2 have had a focus on or used the multiverse in some way, Loki and What If. 2 shows out of 18, 4 movies out of 15. Shouldn't there be more multiverse-focused projects in the multiverse saga? Just saying, the multiverse as a concept is highly underrepresented here. Where are the truly off-the-wall multiverse films? This is the multiverse saga, right? I mean, what's the multiverse concept for, if not for trying new things out, getting experimental? Where's the dark future timeline movies? The heroes breaking bad movies? Where was the Marvel Zombies movie? Oh yeah, it was made into a Disney Plus 4-parter What If story that no one watched. You know, back in 2022 when I heard the multiverse was going to be the true line of the next saga, I had high hopes, man. I thought we were going to get some crazy shit. Thinking we were going to get a full-on Raimi-directed Spider-Man 4 was wishful thinking. But even the multiverse concept films that were a no-brainer didn't materialize. I thought at least we'd get some decent team-up flicks out of it, but nah. No Way Home and Deadpool and Wolverine are it. A Spider-Man film coming off the back of No Way Home seemed like the easiest $1 billion Marvel could have made. But here we are 4 years on from No Way Home, and Marvel have done nothing with these guys, when there is obvious massive audience interest in seeing these characters again. Why didn't we get a full film where an MCU character gets transported to another universe we're familiar with, like the Foxverse or the Amazing Spider-Man universe? A character we're familiar with getting transported to another Earth that's totally alien to them is like the archetypical multiverse story. We got a teaser for this film, but that's it. Marvel builds out a team of mismatched multiversal characters in Deadpool and Wolverine, with Blade, Elektra, Gambit, Laura Kinney, and the Human Torch. This idea has legs. This idea is actually creative. Do you maybe want to do something with it? You're seeing my point. It's almost impressive how unambitious Marvel has been when it comes to using the multiverse. Taking all of this into account though, all of the blunders and missed opportunities, I still think we can get that truly great Marvel multiverse movie. And I want Doomsday to be that movie, man. Even though everything about it screams desperation move, from bringing Downey Jr. back to the Russos, and I know I'm not alone in that. You guys feel the same way, I've seen the comments. Doomsday is just going to be a cameo fest. It's just key jangling bringing the Fox X-Men back again. It's a desperate Hail Mary pass to reinvigorate a dying brand. And yeah, fair. But could the Russos be the ones to actually deliver us that truly great multiverse story that we've all been begging for with Doomsday or Secret Wars? The answer is yes, they could, but they're probably not going to. You see, here's the thing. The premise allegedly for Doomsday is actually pretty solid. You've got the new MCU characters and some returning older ones meeting the Fox X-Men. They'll probably be enemies at first, then have to form a shaky alliance and team up to take on Doctor Doom. There's a lot you can do with that. A lot of potential for character development, interesting team dynamics, and character interactions. All in all, there have been worse setups for a movie. It's not all set on the main MCU Earth either. We will apparently be heading to the old Fox X-Men universe and Raimi's Spider-Man universe too, allegedly. So the good old Russo boys are at least trying to make the most of the multiverse concept, right? But here's the thing. Doomsday has a cast of 30 confirmed actors, all big players too, with plenty more secret cameo characters, I'm sure. Doomsday also has a reported runtime of 2 hours and 45 minutes, and now you might be starting to see the issue, and why I'm a little bit worried. How much screen time do you think the screenwriters could reasonably allot to meaningful character work and team building when you have a cast this large? And keep in mind, this film has a lot of extra stuff it has to accomplish too. Unlike Infinity War, where the Russos only really had to introduce Thanos and build him up, Doomsday has to re-establish the X-Men, and this isn't the same team from the original flicks either, and set up Doctor Doom as the big bad, a character we've only seen a few frames of so far. Taking all of this together, that's a lot to be getting on with. Even with a film that has a 2 hour and 45 minute runtime, I really don't think there's going to be enough time to service these characters in any kind of meaningful way. Years ago, DC and Marvel came together and put out a 4-issue limited series called JLA Avengers. This was a massive event, the two big players coming together. Sure, it had those mind-melting scenes you'd want from a crossover like this, Batman and Cap duking it out, Superman lifting Thor's hammer, but all that stuff was just the icing on the cake. What made JLA Avengers so great, so memorable, was the character interactions, the quieter moments, seeing Superman and Cap talking before a fight, seeing the respect they had for each other, seeing how these guys were just cut from the same cloth, brothers but from different universes, seeing Batman and Cap working together on a battle plan, seeing how they complement each other, how they might have a different approach, but their goals are the same. This was the truly great stuff about JLA Avengers, and this is my worry. The potential of this frankly monumental team-up in Doomsday could easily be squandered. You might just get that sweet icing, the action and fight sequences, but none of the other stuff. The real good stuff, the stuff you'll remember long after you've forgotten about those fight scenes. We will probably get some of those quieter, more meaningful moments between two characters talking, but not as many as there is potential for, and probably not explored with the depth that's required. It might just be that the Russos will make the X-Men into glorified cameo characters, who get a few lines but none with any depth. I would love a 5-minute scene of Steve Rogers and Scott Summers just talking team leader to team leader, but with a cast this large and so much going on, I might just have to settle for 15 seconds. Doomsday can't just be about bringing back characters for nostalgia's sake. It shouldn't be about that. This film has too much potential for that. There is an opportunity, the biggest opportunity Marvel has had in years when you think about it, to actually do something different, break the mold, and deliver an affecting, meaningful movie. Bringing these two universes together, introducing these characters to each other, this is as close as we're going to get to something like JLA Avengers in scale. You're only going to get one chance to do that for the first time. I hope the weight of that isn't lost on the writers or the Russos. I'm not going to say that Marvel didn't implement the concept of the multiverse correctly. Like I said at the start, they got it half right. They brought back some fan favorites. They fixed some mistakes. That's fine. But the other half, the more important half, was doing something meaningful with those returning characters, progressing them forward, adding to their stories, exploring where they are now and how they've changed. If you're not exploring these characters, what's the point in bringing them back? The Multiverse gave the writers on these projects the ability to tell any story they wanted, use any character, reinterpret any character, no boundaries, the sky's the limit. And what do they come up with? Dr. Doom, but Robert Downey Jr. is playing him. That lack of creativity, that lack of ambition, will never not be baffling to me.